a terror attack down south in Beersheba with at least 4 people killed, murdered in cold blood. That terrorist used a knife. And if you saw the footage, I don't know if you did, but if you saw, well, I'll tell you probably why you didn't, is because you only see it if you're in certain WhatsApp groups and social medias where you can post something like that, because it is so gruesome, where you see a terrorist with a knife stabbing and stabbing, not just once. He didn't stab and run, stabbing and stabbing and stabbing and I'm going on live now just because I want to talk about what's going on here in Israel and how surreal things are. Write me a note. Okay, very, very good. Hi, Iris. Ramadan is coming up. And unfortunately, it's a holiday that a lot of the Muslims who hate Israel, not all Muslims hate Israel, but there are Muslims that hate Israel, are making terror attacks. This is what they do to inaugurate their Ramadan holiday, I guess, because it seems to increase, terror attacks seem to increase around their holidays. And Israel, unfortunately, has a very weak government, especially today under Naftali Bennett, with a coalition made up of the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood is part of the government of Israel today. The Muslim Brotherhood, which does not recognize the Jewish state of Israel. The Muslim Brotherhood wants to destroy the state of Israel. And our government is weak on terror and weak on anything that might upset their coalition partners, the Muslim Brotherhood, from saying, we won't tolerate this reaction that Israel's done. And they leave the government, they leave the coalition, and their House of Cards government falls. So Naftali Bennett and Yair Lapid and all of the people were making up this, I don't even know how to describe this government. You talk about a stolen government in the United States, because many Trump supporters say the election was stolen. Here in Israel, we have a man that has only 6 seats out of 120 who's leading the country, who's become prime minister because of wheeling and dealing, and even so much so wanting power that he would bring in people who hate Israel, the Muslim Brotherhood, in our government. I tell you, it's crazy. Absolutely crazy. Let me just read you some of the latest headlines here this is from Arutz Sheva, IsraelNationalNews.com. Just to give you a rundown of what's happening, 5 were killed this evening here in Israel in Bnei Brak. It's a city right next to Tel Aviv. So all of these leftists that want to say, well, what were they doing there? I mean, one of the things that they do whenever there's a terror attack in Judea and Samaria, the loved line that the leftists like to take is, well, they shouldn't have been there. What were they doing there? And they were bothering the Arabs because they were there. But what are you going to say when this is happening in the Tel Aviv area? Bnei Brak is right next to Tel Aviv. They shouldn't have been there. Wake up. Shooter opens fire at private vehicle in Bnei Brak, killing 5 people. This is just this evening. The other day, we had a terror attack where 2 people were killed and more were injured in Hadera, which is north of Tel Aviv. And a few days before that, we had a terror attack down south in Beersheba with at least 4 people killed, murdered in cold blood. That terrorist used a knife. And if you saw the footage, I don't know if you did, but if you saw, well, I'll tell you probably why you didn't, is because you only see it if you're in certain WhatsApp groups and social medias where you can post something like that, because it is so gruesome, where you see a terrorist with a knife stabbing and stabbing, not just once. He didn't stab and run, stabbing and stabbing and stabbing and stabbing and stabbing over and over and over and over again. This hatred, this lack of value for human life and even for innocent human life doesn't exist with our enemies. These are not peace partners. These are people who are anti-Semites, or I should say, better word, anti-Jew. It's not anti-Semitism, it's anti-Jewism, as one of our co-hosts on Israel News Talk Radio always says. And this will keep on going unless there are consequences that are more painful than what they are today, for sure. But our weak government today is not going to do it, because their government might fall if they do it. Let me go through another few headlines here. We are dealing with a new wave of terrorism. The security forces of the state of Israel are among the best in the world. As in previous waves, this time too, we will win. I say platitudes, platitudes, platitudes. How many times have we heard this before? You know, sometimes after these terror attacks, our prime minister, whoever it is, whether it's Bibi or Bennett or whoever, they get up and they say stupid things like, we're going to catch them. And that's supposed to make us feel better. I mean, it's your job to catch them. It's your job to stop them before they do it. You're not doing anything special by catching them. What? So you can put them in jail and then they're going to just be in that revolving door where they'll go out again in the next prisoner swap? Because that's what's happened. Do you know that Israel does not have the death penalty here? So all of these murderous terrorists go to jail and we give them free education. They get a degree. They come out being college graduates. It's crazy. So now they can kill with a degree. And many of them do get out and many of them do kill again. They murder. Let's go to another headline. Bnei Brak, terrorist identified as PA resident, Palestinian Authority resident. Terrorist who murdered 5, identified as Samaria resident in Israel illegally, who was previously imprisoned for a security offense. There you see, previously imprisoned. Instead of it being a deterrent going to jail, he probably just learned more from the terrorists who were in there, and he comes out and now he kills 5 people. 5 innocent people. I want to tell you that I used to be a news writer and news anchor. And the hardest day for me was not the day of a terror attack. It was the day after. The day after the terror attack was the hardest day for me. And that was because on the first day of the terror attack, you had the numbers. 1 person was killed, 2 people. Oh, the death toll went up to 3. The death toll went up to 4. It went up to 5. Whatever it was, more, who knows? But they were numbers. The next day, we already had the information of their names, who they were. They were a mother. She was taking her child to kindergarten. She went to work, and then she was killed at work by the terrorist. Another one, he was a teacher. Somebody else was a father of, let's say, 6 children, and he won some award for community service. And these numbers become real. They become real because you see the toll that we suffered. Let's go to another article. Despicable terrorists once again shed the blood of innocents. President after attack in Bnei Brak, I ask that you act sensitively and not distribute videos and messages that could harm the families. You know what? When I see things like, I'm reading this the first time with you, by the way. When I see things like this, I don't believe it. I don't give the benefit of the doubt here because I've been through this over and over and over again. My first response to this is that he asks not because he cares about the sensitivity of the families. You know, maybe he does, but I don't believe it. I believe he doesn't want it because he doesn't want to rile up the population. Because when you hear about 5 people who were killed, you can go about your day. Well, I've got to do this and I've got to do that. Blah, 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 blah. Da, 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 da. But when you see a terrorist stab a woman, run over a man, back and forth, run out of his car and stab and stab and stab over and over and over again into a poor woman on the sidewalk, you get incensed. You get riled up, rightfully so, by the way. But they want to numb us because they don't want us to do anything. They're afraid of the scary word, escalation. And that's how the Israeli government for the past, I don't know how many years, has been weighing whether to act or not act. Will it bring an escalation? How many rockets we've absorbed in the south of Israel and all over the country of Israel, because the rockets and the missiles shot out from Gaza reach all the way up to Haifa in the north. They've reached Jerusalem. They've reached Tel Aviv. When they hit Tel Aviv, they start to react. But in any case, I digress. Always they're saying, can we absorb the blows? Can we absorb the hits? Because we don't want an escalation. And that's how the Israeli government decides whether to respond or not. Is it worth the risk of escalation? What will the international community say? What will the repercussions be, etc.? It's a weak government. It's a government that looks to see, what is this one going to say? What is that one going to say? Before we do what's right to save and protect our own people. Let's go to some more headlines from Israel National News. If government has weak response, we will have more victims. Opposition MKs or members of Knesset respond to deadly shooting attack in which 5 were killed. These are just some of the headlines. Let me go back to my Facebook page also and see if anybody is commenting. Wow, a few comments. Wow, over 20. Time to remove all the fake Palestinians from historical Jewish land. The time of half measures must come to an end. Okay, let me say something about when he uses the word fake Palestinians. You know, I want to say this as well. The Arabs who reside in the Palestinian Authority under their government of the PLO, which is run by Mahmoud Abbas, who was number 2 to arch-terrorist Yasser Arafat. He claims that they're Palestinians. That's the name that they use. Then one day, I don't remember if it was Christmas time or not, he started saying that we were the first Canaanites. We were the Canaanites. And that's how he also wants to say that Israel and the Jewish people are occupiers of this land. And I was thinking, that's interesting. Is he a Palestinian, quote unquote, or a Canaanite? Make up your mind. Now, my father came to the land of Israel. He's a Holocaust survivor. And when he came here, he was a Palestinian. In fact, the Jews were the Palestinians. You had the Palestine Post, which is the Jerusalem Post today. You had the Palestinian money, which had Hebrew on it, and etc. Palestinian meant Jew. And if you called an Arab in those days a Palestinian, they would take umbrage to it. They weren't a Palestinian, that meant Jew. The Arab would say, I'm an Egyptian, or I'm a Southern Syrian, etc. But in I think it was 1964, they decided they needed to claim roots of this land. So they became the Palestinians after the Jews were Israelis. And that gave them some type of tentacle to hold on to the land here, to try to claim it as theirs, that we were the occupiers instead of them. Now, if you look in the Bible, you know whose land this belongs to. God gave this land to the Jewish people. God brought the Hebrews, not the Arabics, the Hebrews out of Egypt and brought them to the promised land. And he promised this to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, not to Ishmael, not even to Esau. Biblically, we know whose land this is. Legally, we know whose land this is. When you are living in your country and you are fighting a defensive war and you win, that land is your land. That's how it works in the world, in wars. You look in the Bible, Hebron is Jewish, and Jerusalem, Jewish, and go to all the holy cities, Tiberias, Tiberia. It's one of our holy cities. Before this is, the Romans were over there too. There was before any Arabs, Palestinians, quote unquote. Anyway, I don't want to get into that now. I'm wasting time. Sina Nechama, 11 dead this week in 3 terror attacks. This is correct. And Zahava saying the only solution is an uncompromising war against all the terrorists, starting with those that Bennett invited into his coalition. Perfect. I was just talking about his coalition and how he will not do anything that can topple his house of cards, which means basically nothing's going to be done about this terrorist attack. They might kill the terrorist in action. I don't even know. I think that they caught him. I think he's probably going to be put on trial. I don't think that they killed him even. But he'll go to jail if he's still alive, and he will get a college degree, get out in the next prisoner exchange, and get married. Nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to change. Not as long as we don't do what's best for our people. Not as long as we don't do the just thing. You know, I just interviewed, just this evening, I did a live interview on Zoom with Shalom Pollack, who wrote a book. I don't have it in front of me, but it was on Israelis, Arabs, Jews, the land of Israel, something like that. And we were talking about the upsurge in terror. And then as soon as I finished this interview, I turn on the news and we have a terror attack. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like, this is exactly what we were talking about. And we were talking about the solutions. When you have a population inside of your country that hates you, that is killing you. You know, I brought up also just this thing about the Academy Awards with Will Smith going up and smacking Chris Rock. Okay, I didn't watch it, but I saw it over and over and over again on newsreels. And people are asking me, they're coming up to me and asking me, did he have a right to do it? What do you think? Blah, 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 blah. And I said, nobody ever has a right to go up and smack someone. The only time you get violent is when, because the Jews don't do things. The Jews are not violent and the Jews are not vengeful. In fact, the interview I just did was on revenge and how it is in the Arab culture to get violent and take revenge. The Jewish people, we go through courts, we go through lawyers, etc. We're trying to get things done peacefully, justly, by law. It's not that way. Sometimes you have an opponent that you can try to talk over and over and over again. Sometimes you have to go to war. Did Will Smith have a right to go up and hit Chris Rock? No, but I don't care about that. It's just a perfect example on a much lower scale about what we're dealing with and the right and wrong and what's just and what's not just. So in any case, when we had the terror attack in Hadera the other night, and a Druze officer was killed, the Druze in a northern village went and they started pelting. Well, it's believed that the Druze did it, pelting an Arab mosque. They might try to blame it on the Jews for hate crimes. It's not true. But they believe that it was the Jews that did it because why? Because after the attack of murdering these two people in Khadera and wounding more, the Arabs celebrated. They passed out candies. People came to the house of the terrorists and they lauded the terrorists. And the Druze were upset. The Druze were very angry about that. And what did they do? They started to take revenge. They started to show their anger. Let me read some more things here. It's not just terrorism, it's genocide because it is the murder of Jews. Thank you, Flora Delage. I know who you are. I love you. Tamar, so nice to see you. I hear people saying that violence is never justified and a slap seems so horrible when the world closes its eyes to horrific attacks on the Jews. You know what, Tova, I want to read something to you that Paula Stern wrote that was just so spot on. So spot on. I wish I would have written it. Let me just read you. This is about the Ukraine-Russian war. And you may have a different opinion than her or me, because I agree with this letter that she wrote, but that's okay. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion. If you agree with me, disagree with me, that's fine. I don't mind. I don't take insult from it, and I'm not offended by it. We need to explore things from, that's what a yeshiva is. That's what the Talmud is. You study from this angle and you study from that angle and from this angle. You want to get all the information you can before you can make a decision. Listen to this letter she wrote, because we're talking about these things. Dear Vladimir Zelensky, because Vladimir, he went up to he spoke with the Israeli, to the Israeli Knesset, and a lot of Israelis took offense by it because he was very insensitive. And I'm going to read her letter. Dear Vladimir Zelensky, so let's clear a few things up, she writes. You're the underdog here, and Israel usually aligns itself with the underdog, because the truth is that in every war we fought, we were the underdog, because we were outnumbered, isolated, and countries like yours, Ukraine, chose to align themselves with our enemies. In your case, more than 35 times in recent years. 35 times the Ukraine voted against Israel in the United Nations. Let's be clear. Israel doesn't owe Ukraine anything, because he came on and told the Knesset that, you have to do this, and we're going through a genocide, it's a Holocaust for us, etc., etc. Let me get back. Let's be clear. Israel doesn't owe Ukraine anything. It is our choice to send what aid we feel is appropriate. And we have vast amounts of humanitarian aid, medical assistance, bulletproof ambulances, I'll add here, field hospitals, and more. You're welcome. Your comparison of the Holocaust to today's fight is abhorrent and historically inaccurate. The Jews didn't have an army, an anti-aircraft missiles, or 100,000 rifles to distribute to our people, and no military training. No one sent aid and rescue missions. And let's not even begin to describe how the majority of the Ukrainians treated our people, because they murdered us in pogroms over and over and over again. You feel that we owe you because you are Jewish? Your parents are Jewish? I guess we won't mention that your children are not only not Jewish, but have, with your permission, been baptized. So let's do this, she writes. You stop complaining that Israel isn't doing enough. Start saying thank you next time a vote comes, and next time a vote comes up in the UN, remember how many Arab countries stood by while Israel acted. And if you want Israel to continue to support Ukraine, excuse me, I've been talking all night long. Don't you dare compare your situation, where tragically over 900 people have died, to the massacre of more than 6 million Jews in World War II, to the victims who lie in mass graves like Babi Yar. Babi Yar, for those who don't know, was when they took the Jews out into the forest. Ukrainians with the Nazis, but the Ukrainians showed the Nazis. The Ukrainians worked together with the Nazis to kill the Jews. They took them out into the forest. They stripped them naked. They shot them, man, woman, child, baby, and had their bodies buried in a pit, in a mass grave. She ends this letter with, "We'll help, not because you are a Jew, but because we are Jews." And the Jewish people have compassion. The Jewish people have compassion because we value life, we value family, we value our children. Some cultures, unfortunately, don't. Some cultures take bomb belts and strap them on their children and send them out to kill and murder. And that's what Israel is dealing with. Let's go to some more of your comments here. Doug says, it might be a curse to the Jews, but Jews will always be a blessing to the world. Thank you, Doug. Please, God, it should be. Jonathan says, watching from Uganda. Wow. Hello in Uganda. It's very nice to see you all there. A lot of support here. Thank you for your support. Let's go to some more comments here. I'm just incensed about this terror. I'm incensed because I know it's not going to stop. It's not going to stop because there's no reason to stop. There's no deterrent. There's no consequences. I remember when there was a horrible, horrible terror attack in Beslan in Russia. Beslan. The terrorists had taken over a school. It was the first day of school. I think it was September 1st, maybe. It was many years ago. And mothers were there with taking their children for the kindergarten, first grade. For the first day of school, it was a big special thing. So there were mothers there. It was a very hot day of September. And they were all there in school. And all of a sudden, a bunch of terrorists came in and they took over the school with the children, with the teachers, with the mothers, and they wired it to blow up if anybody tried to escape. And they held the people prisoner there, hostages, for days. I think that kids were drinking their own urine. It was so hot. You saw them when the rescue came, when the Russians finally stormed the building, the Russian soldiers. And kids were running out. Some of them were half naked. It was so hot in there and they couldn't drink. And one of the mothers that was interviewed, I don't know, somehow she escaped or she survived, and they were interviewing her, and she said something which I will never forget. She said, I went to one of the terrorists and I asked him, I said, what is it? What are your demands? What do you want? Maybe our mayor will be able to deliver and give it to you. Please just don't kill us. Please just leave peacefully. What is it? What are your demands? What do you want? And he looked at her and he said to her, we didn't come here for money. We came here to die. How do you negotiate? How do you work out a solution with someone who's not interested in a solution? They came to die, but first they're going to murder. First they're going to kill and maim. And scum like that have to be dealt with. Let me go back to the news sources. I'm reading this for the first time with you. I'm just so incensed because, again, I said, I don't believe that any of this is going to stop now. It's just not. There's no deterrent factor. The Israeli government is weak. The Israeli government can't do anything that will upset the Muslim Brotherhood party members in the government. If Israel was to really give a smack to the terrorists, go in and do what had to be done, They would say, we will not tolerate this. We can't be part of a government that does this to our people. And they would leave the coalition. The whole government would topple down. And our politicians do not want to lose their job. They don't want to lose their ministries. They don't want to lose their secretaries and their offices and their cars and their salaries. I know I'm making this so little, but that's what I think. That's my opinion. And you can disagree with me if you want, but that's what I see. I don't see any courage. I don't see any honor. I don't see any justice. And without that, you're going to have a continuation of terror. In fact, people are right now going to the house of this terrorist and applauding his family. And they're probably handing out candy in the street to the public for killing these 5 innocent people. Let's see what Bennett says. He says, we are dealing with a new wave of terrorism. Okay, let's see what he says. I'm going to click. All right. The security forces of the state of Israel are among the best in the world. As in previous waves, this time too, we will win. Platitudes, platitudes, platitudes. It's not going to make the people who died back alive. It's not going to bring comfort to their families. He writes here, citizens of Israel, these are difficult times. Every few years, the state of Israel faces a wave of terrorism. After a period of quiet, there is a violent outburst of those who are trying to destroy us, those who want to harm us at all costs, whose hatred of the Jews of the state of Israel drives them crazy, those who are willing to die, provided we do not live in peace. You know, these people he's talking about that want to destroy us, want to harm us at all costs, have a hatred of the Jews and the state of Israel. Well, that's his government with the Muslim Brotherhood in it. What does he expect? And we had this even before the Muslim Brotherhood was part of an Israeli government, in power. This is a great challenge for the IDF, blah, blah, blah. The Shin Bet and the Israeli police, a complex challenge that requires the defense systems to be creative and adapt to the new threat. Read indicative signs in individuals, sometimes even without organizational affiliation, and know the area well in order to thwart terrorism even before it happens. So now he's blaming Israel's security forces not being able to quell the violence because now we have like lone wolves. Is that what they call them? And this is a new threat. This is not a new threat. It's just that he has to come up with something in order to wriggle out of being blamed for the rise in terror lately. The security forces of the state of Israel are among the best in the world. They are prepared to deal with the task, and as in previous waves, this time too we will win. Citizens of Israel, I ask together with you to express condolences to the families and wish a recovery to the wounded. We are all guarantors of one another. We are all required to show responsibility and vigilance. I strengthen the civilians and the police who shot at the terrorists in the various arenas. I spoke to some of them and thanked them on behalf of us all. These are heroes who, thanks to their courage, saved human lives. Well, that's true. We are at the dawn of a challenging time. We have known terrorism from the beginning of Zionism. They did not break us then, and they will not break us today. The secret of our existence is the mutual guarantee between us, our determination to maintain the house we built at all costs. I think he means the government that he built at all costs, that he wants to maintain. Citizens of Israel, this time too we will win. You know, we need to do more than win. We need to protect our children, our families, our citizens, our innocent. That's what we need to do. I have on my wall in front of me something from the book of Isaiah, Yeshayahu, chapter 32, verse 17 and 18. It says how we're going to have peace. Listen to the words of the prophet. The product of righteousness shall bring peace, and the effect of righteousness, quiet and security forever. And if you go to number 18, it says here, and my people shall abide in a peaceable habitation and in secure dwellings and in quiet resting places. What our prophet is telling us, our wise prophet is telling us, is that peace is not something you can buy off of a grocery shelf. Peace is not something that you can buy, period. Peace is the result. It's not something you can purchase or buy. It is the result of righteousness, of having a just society. One of the 7 laws of Noah, that is for all of mankind, is to make courts of justice. Because if you live in a world where there is no justice, where the strong rule over the weak, and you can't get justice when somebody violates you, steals from you, hurts you, commits a crime against you or against your community, if you can't get justice, you are living in evil times under an evil government and leadership. If you can't get justice, you are living under an evil leadership. If you can't get justice, you will not have peace. You will not have security. You will not have safety, and you will not have peace. You won't. We have to listen to the wise words of our prophet. Politicians, like you said, are not courageous. They have no principles. They're only interested in keeping their prestigious positions. This is true. Awesome scripture. Thank you, Sherry Lee. Typical progressive talking points, Stephen. I'm trying to work together with Zoom and Facebook, and I don't know, it's not showing me all of the comments here so that I can read some of them out and respond to them that you're writing me. Sina's writing, justice shall thy pursue, and that's in the book of Deuteronomy. There's no leadership. Tova says, we cannot live among people that hate and murder. Impossible to live this way. This is true. And this government has to fall. It has to go. You know what Israel needs to do? Israel needs to metamorphosis. The state of Israel needs to metamorphosis into a messianic state, into a state that is ready to receive the Mashiach. Because you know what? We are in such deep muck. We are in such deep muck. We are in World War III right now. It just hasn't gone nuclear yet. Do I say yet with a question mark? I don't see good things ahead right now. I don't know if mankind can get ourselves out of this muck with New World Order talk. No sovereignty for countries and states and cultures and languages and religions. No, we all have to meld into this one world government. We all have to get this in our arms. You have no say whether you want it or not want it. You won't be able to work. You won't be able to let your family make a living and put bread on the table and keep a roof over your head, because someone's telling you to do something to yourself that if you don't have bodily autonomy, you are a slave. That's how it is. You're a slave. People should be able to have the choice. You want to get it. You don't want to get it, don't get it. And if you get it, then don't worry about other people, because if you've gotten this, it's supposed to protect you. So leave the rest of everyone else alone. And if you're afraid, stay home. I'm veering off into another subject that I didn't really want to go to, but we have less and less freedom today. We have more people who are leading the world who are with a Tower of Babel mentality, a communist mentality where the individual is not important. It's the collective that's important only. And the communist countries have killed the most amount of their own citizens, I think, than any other type of government. You look at Khmer Rouge, you look at the Soviet Union killed so many of their people, China, all of these communist countries, you look at their economies, they're the worst in the world as well. You look at Cuba, you look at Vietnam, you look at Venezuela, you look at the Soviet Union. We're not living anywhere near the standards that free countries were living under, like America in its heyday, etc. Mankind is going towards a very, very dangerous, nasty, dirty place where there is no justice, where there is no freedom, where there is no expression of individuality. It's late at night here. It's almost 1 a.m. here after a hard day's work. We need to pray for the Jewish people and for everybody. Our words, you know, God created the universe through speech. It doesn't say in the Bible that God took his hands and he formed a ball and he formed the stars and he threw them into, no, God said, let there be light. God said, let there be trees and flowers and birds and animals, etc. It was all spoken. So the spoken word, prayer, has a lot of power, a lot of weight to it. Words, what do they say? The pen is more powerful. How does it go? The pen is mightier than the sword, because words do have power, mystical power, especially prayers. So I think that we need to just pray to God, to our Creator, that he bring justice to the world, that he reveal himself more in the world so we can have this peace, that he send us the Messiah, the Redeemer, who's going to redeem all of mankind, not just the Jewish people, not just the Muslims, if you believe in the Mahdi, not just the Christians, if you believe in Jesus, whatever it is. But the Messiah will redeem all of mankind. He will reveal God more in the world. We will understand that we all come from the one. We're all part of each other. It doesn't make sense for the fingers that can write concertos, can write poetry, can write Shakespeare, can play piano and guitar and do all these wonderful, creative, artistic things, that look at the toes and say, you small, stubby, smelly little toes, and I don't like you, and it takes a sledgehammer and smashes them. Does that make sense? No, because we're all part of the same body, and all mankind, whether you're from the east, the west, the north, the south, the deserts, the mountains, whatever, we're all brothers and sisters. We're all human beings. We all stem from the same mother and father, Noah, and before that, Adam and Eve. We are all brothers and sisters. We should get along with each other. We should have peace. We shouldn't hate each other. And if you have a difference of opinion, okay, discuss it or go live in a place where more people think like you and live in peace and live in security and have just societies where people can get justice and where there is a penalty for endangering other people. If you go to murder, you have to be dealt with. If you're going to steal from someone else, it has to be dealt with. You can't use kid gloves. There has to be justice. Israelis keep voting for the same garbage. When will Israelis wake up? Okay, that's because it's the same garbage that keeps running for politics. You know, pretty much the same in America, except for the new squad. And look what that's even worse than the old squad. Let's see here. Birth pangs, Tamar, birth pangs. This is true, Matt. Thank you. It's the birth pangs of Mashiach. You know what? I am an optimistic person because I know as hard as it's going to be now, and as hard as it is, and as hard as it may be, I really do see this as the birth pangs of the Messiah, of Mashiach. Just like in birth, the pains get faster and stronger and more painful. But then after that, a baby is born, a new life, and everybody is joyous and happy. And that's how this story that we are in will end as well. It may be a very rough ride with a lot of contractions and painful ones until we get there. In the end, it will be good. But we, as part of God's creation and as partners with God, because God gave the earth to us and he told us, go and settle it and make it better, be my partner in a sense. He's giving us that opportunity, that we have to do our part in this as well. And we have to fight the evil. We have to fight this. And tomorrow, the tears are not now. Right now, I'm just enraged. My tears are going to come tomorrow when I find out the names of the people who were killed, who were brutally butchered in their car, who they were, what they did, all of the good things they were, if they were a mother, if they were a father, what they did. That's when my tears are going to come, because when you see and you understand, you can be more empathetic, you can feel it. And we all have to do that. So if you do have footage of this terror attack, which I've seen, share it. The president of Israel is asking you not to. I disagree. I say share it, let people know what it is, how horrible it is, so they also can understand this and demand from our leadership that justice be taken, be given to stop it. We don't want platitudes. We've had platitudes on platitudes on platitudes, and nice words and flowery speeches over and over and over again. We want to stop to the terror. We want safety. We want security. We want justice. We want peace. So with that, I'm going to sign out. It's after 1 a.m. here. Please pray for the victims, their families, and for justice. And watch our videos. Watch our videos, because we are talking about things other people don't talk about because they're being censored, or they're too afraid, or they want to be politically correct. Go to our homepage at israelnewstalkradio.com, israelnewstalkradio.com. I'll put it in the comments section. And look for, on our menu bar that goes across the screen, there's a place that's called videos. Go there, and all of our videos are there. I'm uploading the video I just did this evening talking about the rise in terror in Israel. I finished this interview, boom, another terror attack and 5 dead. God bless their souls. God bless the families. God bless us. Laila Tov. Good night, everybody. And pray. That's our most powerful tool and demand from our politicians, justice. Hey everyone, to make sure you can get access to all of our interviews, make sure to hit the subscribe button on both our YouTube and Rumble channels. Your click makes us all stronger. Thanks.